Stop it. Stop it. Because if you lose a job, you'll figure it out. If you lose money, resiliency, you'll be able to figure it out. You can always make more money. If you lose a position, you're not redundant, you're remarkable, you can get another job. If you lose another job, you can figure out and do anything for a year and still make money. Like, you can figure it out.
I lost over $324,000 in a failed Amazon business. Nearly wrecked my marriage, my whole life. But I bounced back. And I've been asked, how'd you do that? How do you come back from that kind of failure, from really almost losing all of it? And I thought about it. And really the question that really begs is resiliency a trait? Or is it a skill that can be learned? And if it's a skill, can we build a framework to understand how resilient people think, how they work, so that we too can become more resilient? And that's what this podcast is all about. Welcome to the Resiliency Project, where we interview successful people from business and in life in general, and we ask them, how'd they fail and how do they come back? And our guest today is a dear friend of mine, Bart Berkey. He is so phenomenal. He's doing some amazing work. But really, what I love about him is most people don't, is his catchphrase. And that's true. Most people don't, but you do. The great podcast that I had the pleasure of being on, Bart. How are you? Welcome to the show.
No, thanks, Nick. And I did not know that specifics of your particular story. So thank you for sharing that with me, because that is setting the tone, I know, for what we're going to be able to talk about. Yeah, but it's so much fun to be able to do things with you. I know the first time side by side in Las Vegas with David Meltzer's office hours, and I just loved your energy. I loved your thoughtfulness. We've been able to co-host a couple of things. So thank you. What an honor for you to be wanting to talk to me in this format. So I appreciate it.
Oh, Stop it. You're a living legend. Yeah, no. And listen, I want to tell people that story because a lot of people look at me and sort of my trappings are such that people think, oh, he's just successful. Everything I touch turns to gold, when nothing could be further from the truth, right? I think we've all had those dark nights of the soul, and that's what we're here to examine. And so my first question to you is, what was your biggest failure and how'd you come back?
My biggest failure, goodness. So we've been doing this. My wife is the co-founder of Most People Don't, our company. We've been doing it full time now for about seven years. Right before the pandemic hit, I had a massive heart attack. It was just during routine nose surgery. I had been living with a deviated septum for 40 plus years because of an out of body experience 40 years before that as a kid. So that's another story. But, I had a heart attack right before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, things obviously started changing with business. And I'll never forget, I did not know what a pandemic was. We happened to be in a group meeting. This is when I was with Ritz-Carlton and Marriott Luxury Brands. And our senior leader had to look it up and then read to us what a pandemic was. The thought at that point was, well, it's going to pass because it's a U curve kind of a thing. It's a U, it'll peak and then it'll be done with. And then to realize weeks later, my team is put on furlough. Weeks later, I'm put on furlough. Nick, at that point, I was given a choice. After 16 years with a company, they said, look, we don't know when we're going to be able to when we can bring you back from furlough. So it's up to you. If you'd like to take the, in quotes, early retirement package, the early package, you could take it. And I decided that I wanted to be in charge of my own destiny. And I was using the pandemic that it was happening for me, not to me. I wanted to use it. And that was the nudge that I needed to start my own business. Now, I had written that book, Most People Don't and Why You Should, about 10 years ago. And I had been speaking organically on the topic. People would ask me, I'd take a day off from Ritz-Carlton. I would speak on the topic and audiences of 400 or 500 people. So I knew we had something there. But it was so comfortable and so enjoyable being with Ritz-Carlton, leading part of a global sales team, traveling all over the place, staying at luxury hotels. But then when the pandemic hit and I had to reevaluate some things, it gave me a runway. The package gave me a runway. And I said, this is the time that more people need to hear good messages. People are struggling. I was worried. The world was worried. People were dying. And a friend of mine called me and they said, Bart, I just lost my job. I was told that I was redundant. Nik, as soon as I heard that, I had never heard the term redundant being used about a person. And that hit home as well. And at that point, I wanted then to make sure that people felt that they were remarkable, not redundant. If they were losing their jobs, it wasn't because of anything that they had done. It was simply a matter of circumstances. I put together, throughout the first year of the pandemic, 85 virtual presentations, most of them not paid because people were struggling, most of them just to be able to help folks. But in doing that, it's really hard to start a business during the pandemic. It's hard to create a motivational speaking business during the pandemic. And you're asking me about failure and resiliency. I will also never forget that at one point, bank account is down to next to nothing. My runway sold as much stock as I could from Marriott to give me a runway, and things were not coming in. And I went outside, I leaned up against the car where no one could see me, and I just bawled my eyes out. It's sad to this point, but it was something that I felt that I needed to do. If I could make hotel guests with Ritz-Carlton and our clients feel good by noticing, anticipating, and over-delivering, by doing good things for them, by seeing what people needed and then delivering that, why couldn't I help more people take that same type of philosophy with life, with any other business, to apply this term, which is brand new to us? I think I mentioned it to you. It's called humanality. And it's a new approach. It's a new term. We're copywriting it. And humanality, to me, it's defined as making people feel cared for, valued, seen, and heard in a world that is so highly processed and transactional that often most people don't do that. So this is, I know, a long answer kind of getting to where we are right now.
Phenomenal.
The failure was just about running out of runway. And the resiliency was, I can't go back. I can't go back to an office. I can't go back to a corporate team. That's just so siloed. That's siloed. Great company, great people, great culture, but I can't do that. I need to be able to meet people like Nik, like David, like Eric, like Jesse. That's here, right? That's here. And I think that still continues to this day is what drives me through resiliency. Not every day as an entrepreneur is easy. I'm not losing $322,000 on an investment, but sometimes we have great months and sometimes it's a little quiet. The resiliency that keeps going, it is remembering the why. And I don't want this to sound cliche. We have a statement that if the why is important enough, the how becomes easy.
Mm-hmm.
If the why is important enough, the how becomes easy. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That gets you through things. So I know long answer, and thank you for being quiet and listening attentively.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, first, a comment. My wife is a chief human resources officer. And recently, my boy, who's 7 years old, asked my wife, so what do you do? I know daddy's an attorney. And she said, well, I'm in human resources. And he looked at her and said, how can humans be resources? So I love what you said about humanality. Yes. Because it's such an astute observation from such a young person, but really through that child's eyes, right? Like, how can we think about people as simply as resources, right? It shouldn't be that way. So I love what you're saying, but then also, coming to sort of that story, and it was an amazing one. I think it's important that reframe of this is simply a matter of circumstance instead of taking these failures personally, right? You were out there crying by your car. Yeah. Talk to me about that reframe, that mentality shift of this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And was that part of what helped you push through?
Yes. And when I was feeling that way, slumped up against a tire, I was feeling bad for myself. I was only looking internally. A friend of mine, right around that time, had made this suggestion. I want to share this with your listeners too. The story goes as such. I was feeling down for myself. I was waiting for a contract. They were supposed to send it to me by 4:00 on a particular day, and it didn't come. It wasn't coming. It wasn't coming. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not a great storyteller or a great speaker or a great trainer. All of these negative thoughts that were flowing in. And so I got out of the house and I went to just a grocery store. And while I'm shopping, I'm almost expecting my phone to ding, ding, here's the contract, way to go, you're good enough. And it didn't happen. Finally, when I got done shopping, I stepped outside, and a friend of mine had recommended that if ever I'm feeling down, just try this. So, feeling down, sad, looking inside, not feeling good enough. And the words were this: show me how good it can be. So I stepped outside and loud, verbally, I said, show me how good it can be. And it was kind of questioning the universe, right? The good energy. Show me how good it can be. I said it once, nothing happened, Nick. And I was almost expecting, ding, my phone would, contract, you're good enough. Well done, congratulations. Yeah, it worked. And so then I said it a second time. Little self-conscious, but I'm like, who cares, right? I'm sad. Let's get this out. Show me how good it can be. Said a little louder that time. Still expecting a ding. Nothing happened. I said it a third time, and I said it loud and proud. Show me how good it can be, right? Show me. At that moment, it hits me here. At that moment, there was a little girl, probably about 10 or 11 years old, in a wheelchair being pushed by her mom. And it was a wheelchair that you could tell was not for a broken leg or a broken foot or a sprained ankle. It had stickers on it. It had stuffed animals tied to it. It was a permanent vehicle, a permanent tool for this young girl. What I noticed is that they were laughing and smiling and joking and teasing each other. And the mom was acting like she was going to run into the cart where all the other shopping cart, like just having fun. That was it. That was, your world is not so bad, Bart. Oh, you didn't get a contract. Oh, but are your kids happy and healthy? Yeah. Is your wife strong and committed and loving? Yeah. Do you have your health? Yeah. The element of, yes, looking to the universe, but that was the sign. My suggestion for anyone that needs to find the resiliency, look up, look out, get out of here and open up this, right? Out of your own mind, open up your heart, volunteer, give, do. One act of kindness a day, proven for 7 days in a row, will increase your personal happiness by 8%. Okay, that's resiliency.
It's also what you were able to do was pay attention to the gratitude that you have in your life. The things in your life that you are grateful for, right? That wife, the kids, everything is working in your favor, even if you can't even see it. And so I wonder, Bart, in your story, right? We talked a little bit about, I could go back to that corporate life, but I don't want to, but it's very comfortable, right? That corporate life is easier. It's not, it might be filled with tears, but for a different reason, right? Rather than, oh my God, I'm a failure, I'm not going to make it, right? But so take me through that sort of the calculus, right? Because I'm sure there are people out there that are saying, well, yeah, I mean, it's hard and it's just easier if I just go get a job. What was it that said to you, you know what, I'm going to live through this discomfort. I'm going to push through.
Wow.
What did it take to do that?
Yes. There's another message that I was sharing during the time of the pandemic, that you can do anything for a year. Meaning, maybe you lost your job. Maybe you don't want to be a driver with shared transportation services. Maybe you don't want to be an Uber driver or a DoorDash delivery person. Maybe you don't want to work at Starbucks or McDonald's. But you know what? If you needed to, you can. You can do anything for a year. You can make money some way, somehow. You can do anything for a year. Might suck. It's not going to be your passion, but you can do it for a year. A year's going to fly by. Just a year's going to fly by. So the element of, I'm so happy to share that story. I totally missed your question there, Nik. How's that for being a good listener?
Well, no. So the question is, right? How do you choose the harder path? How do you will yourself to say, you know what, this is shit, but it's my shit, and I'd much rather wallow here than in someone else's in the corporate world and earning a comfortable living, though.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. I was so passionate about telling you that story, Nik, and your listeners.
I love it.
Imagine this. We're talking, and all of a sudden, it looks like I froze, right?
No, you're great.
Imagine your computer is going to crash. You're going to get that blue screen of death, and you're going to reboot. Just imagine how scary that is. And imagine during a live podcast interview, we freeze. Or your computer crashes. My suggestion for everyone, based on my heart attack experience, based on all the things that I've seen in 59 years, don't wait. That's how you can choose to deal with the hard stuff. If you realize that time is short, life is short, time is fleeing. Imagine if your computer crashed when you're not ready. And the computer crashing can symbolize a job. It can symbolize health. It can symbolize a relationship. But it might happen at any second. I wasn't expecting to have a heart attack during routine nose surgery. Are you kidding? Don't wait. Pursue what makes you happy. Do good for others. Do what most people don't do. Think about the legacy that you want to be able to leave in general for your family, or what you want to be known for. There's a gentleman that I had interviewed through some mutual friends, Dr. Fernando. He's a gentleman who is the CEO of a company called AEXA. And he wrote a book. He does holographic imagery, and he's a space scientist, essentially. But he wrote a book talking about the 33 predictions for the next 33 years. And I asked him, Dr. Fernando, what is the one that interests you the most? And he said, it is eternal life. Wow. What does that mean? And he and his team are working on being able to capture, Nik, your memories, your thoughts, your emotions, somehow downloadable. And I know there's movies related to this, but he and his team are working on these things now. Yeah, in this world. And imagine the goal is that your great grandkids can say, Pop, Nik, can you tell me what it was like whenever you lost all of that money on that bad investment? Can you tell me about when you had your podcast talking about resiliency and you were talking to your friend Bart? Can you tell me what that was like? Can you tell me about growing up? Can you tell me about going to school? You know, Pop, Nik, can you tell me what it was like? What was your favorite food when you were like, in getting real answers? And that is this element of eternal life, that the legacy, your great grandkids or family or friends, whatever, will be able to ask you questions, and your memories, your experiences will be downloadable into something that looks like you, and we can have conversations just like this. I'm sharing this because that is the element of, if we're here for this amount of time, we should probably do this amount of great work to be able to help these people that we will never meet, but it is part of humankind in legacy and individualism. So that's part of, I think, why it's okay to choose harder. Things aren't easy, but ask yourself, is it worth it? Ask yourself, is this really what I'm meant to be doing? Ask yourself, am I happy? There is way too many people, Nik. We do this exercise when I'm presenting to a group. I'll ask individuals to write down something, a worry that they bring with them every single day to work, to their job. And we call it the invisible backpack. So they'll write things down, and I'll walk around literally with a clear backpack. They'll put it in, and I'll get up into the middle of the stage, and I will start going through them. In fact, I have a sample of them in one of these drawers. And as I look through what their worries are, the invisible backpack is, you can't see it, but it's heavy on my shoulders. It's weighing me down every single day. The things that people wrote down, I'm worried that I'm going to lose my job. I'm worried that people at work don't like me. I'm worried that my benefits are going to go away. I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to make enough money to take care of my elderly parents. I'm worried that people will find out that I'm not smart. They'll find out that I don't have a college degree. They'll find out. So all of these things are weighing people down. And my message to all of them is stop it. Stop it. Because if you lose a job, you'll figure it out. If you lose money, resiliency, you'll be able to figure it out. You can always make more money. If you lose a position, you're not redundant, you're remarkable, you can get another job. If you lose another job, you can figure out and do anything for a year and still make money. Like, you can figure it out. And the people, it's so sad what people share that is weighing them down. I don't want anything to weigh people down. Life is too short to be weighed down by all of these things. 60,000 thoughts go through an individual's mind every single day. And the statistics show something like 90% of them are repetitive. And of those repetitive thoughts, 85% or so are negative. So all we do is think and think and think, thoughts and thoughts and thoughts, and repetitive and negative and negative and negative. Well, that's not good for anybody. That's not good for anyone. So if you choose harder, can you fill those 90% repetitive thoughts with not just 10% good thoughts, but how about 15%? How about 20%? How about 25% better thoughts? And it's okay to have bad thoughts. Write down the bad thoughts. I have a tab, B for bad thoughts, G for good thoughts. And at the end of the day, I review them to see the bad thoughts. Was I on time for the interview with Nik? Yeah. Well, I was nervous that I was going to be a little bit too hot and sweaty and I didn't have on a collared shirt. Okay, so that's a bad thought that I wrote down. What if I stutter too much? What if I'm not paying attention? What if the dogs start barking when bad thought. But then at the end of the day, when I go through these things, Nik, it was fine. If I was sweaty, it's fine. My T-shirt, that's who I am. It's didn't happen, right? That's not a bad thought. The dogs didn't bark during this interview. Okay, cross that off. So you realize that all of these things that you're worried about never happened anyway. So why did I spend any time worrying about it? That's resiliency.
I love that so much. You know, for me, I write down in my journal every morning, what if, right? So what if this happens? You know, then it's not so bad. Right? That it really is not that bad. Once you name it and you write it down, you really realize that these things, they aren't that bad. So, you know, we do things a bit reverse order on this show. So, Bart, tell the people who you are. How you got into doing what you're doing now. You talked a little bit about it, but tell me a little bit about your background.
You're an amazing interview because you get into the heart of what matters. And I truly appreciate you and I appreciate our friendship because of the human being that you are. And I know it's hard for you to take compliments, but I'm going to keep on giving you compliments anytime I see it. Okay. So well done. I'm proud to know you. So my name is Bart Berkey. I am the only Bart Berkey in the world. It's not hard to find me. Put in my name, Google me, and you will see what we do. I spent many years in the world of hospitality, as I shared most recently, 16 years with Ritz-Carlton, always leading people or being an individual contributor. So sales and service, that's what I have done most of my career. Pandemic hit, again, wrote a book. Most people don't, why you should, simply about observations, things that I noticed that made sense and I thought could instill a little bit of a story. One of the stories in the book is my dry cleaner wears wrinkled shirts. And to me, the most people don't is act the way that you present yourself the way that you want to be presented. So what if you went and saw your dry cleaner was only wearing wrinkled shirts? Or if your fitness instructor was 800 pounds overweight, God bless them, right? You need to be who you are, be yourself, but also represent the industry or the business that you're in. So that's just one little example. My dog's feet smell like Fritos is another story. And that just relates to being interesting, know interesting things, and be able to have a conversation such as, well, I have dogs. Well, did you ever pick up the paw of your puppy and smell it? You know, it's going to smell like corn chips. Try it. And there's a reason for it. And it sounds so outrageous, but that's a little chapter of the book, right? Find things that are interesting that you can talk about with other people, okay? So wrote the book, decided that we're going to be speaking full time. And since then have been traveling all around the world, sharing ideas, mainly keynote messages on doing what most people don't. But then we have other stories that relate to what the attendants, what the audience need to hear. And it might be something like we have a program called Be Bamboo, which is about being flexible, because bamboo is a grass. And what does it do in the wind? It bends in the wind. We talk about adapt to what you can, control to what you can't, and realize that bending is not breaking. So we talk about flexibility. We talk a lot about kindness and gratitude. And then the most recent and most popular topic is this element of humanality. We have been going truly around the globe, speaking to groups, and it's everything from 20 to 20, well, not 20,000 at this point, probably 5,000 has been the biggest, and sharing good messages in a way that is interesting, unique, and memorable. We tell a lot of stories, or I tell a lot of stories, because I think I have the gift of being able to watch things unfurl, watch how people interact, and then being able to take those stories in, put them into my heart, make me happy, make me appreciate it. But then when someone needs to hear something, somehow I'm able to pull out this story and share it with people at a time where they need to hear it. So the element of humanality, I'm hearing from so many of our clients, Nik, and I'm sure you are too, that everything is so processed. Everything is so transactional. It's not about the person. It's about the checklist. And I shared this story, went into a coffee shop recently, and you could tell they had a little bell on the door. I opened up the door, ding, ding, ding. And I just heard probably 3 or 4 people say, welcome in, welcome in. But Nik, what they weren't doing, first of all, what they were doing is they were following a checklist. They were told, hear a bell, say welcome in. And it wasn't like they were looking at me. They were looking at the pastries. They were looking down. They were looking at the coffee machine. I felt processed. I felt like I was being checklisted. Now you compare that to a different coffee experience that I had when I was out in California. This one woman, while she was ringing me up, and there was 20 other people behind me, she said, what are your plans for the weekend? And Nik, she meant it. She wanted to know what were my plans for the weekend. And I just thought, how lovely. Like, you're making me feel seen, cared for, valued, and heard, not processed. And it was just that simple question. So that element of humanality, and it's so funny with your son and your wife, right? I didn't know humans could be a resource. With everything happening in the world with technology and AI, it is going to be the differentiator to utilize the human element, the humanality element, to make people feel a certain way. Otherwise, I'm checklisted, I'm processed, and I'm transacted. And people don't remember those things. People are going to remember how you made them feel, right? Sitting next to you when we were co-hosting together in Las Vegas, you made me feel comfortable. You made me feel proud. You made me feel intelligent. You made me feel included. You were the main co-host, yet you made me feel all of those things, and you probably weren't even aware of it. And that's why, right, this relationship is continued. And how easy is it for us to be able to have those types of relationships, Nik? We just need to stop. We need to get out of our own heads, out of our own worry. We need to be resilient. We need to look up. We need to give to others. And that's when you feel better. That's when the 10% of the negative, the good thoughts expand to 11%. And then tomorrow it's going to be to 12%. And then listening to people like you, listening to your show, listening to people hopefully like me speak, it's going to make them feel a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And then you surround yourself with all of those people. We start off talking about resiliency, of course, with your show. Use those people. Use that circle. I didn't need to be out there crying alone. I could have called up my friend Nik and said, Nik, man, I'm really worried. I'm worried, brother. This is what's happening. I know you've been through a lot, right? What do you suggest? And that's, I know, why you're doing this show. You're pulling in people to say, okay, things are not always easy. Things sometimes suck. Things are important. But go ahead. Nik did it. I can do it. You can do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, part of resiliency, right, is building that community, right? Really raising your hand and realizing you're not alone, right? I think that's part of the reason for this show, right? Is that everyone's on Instagram, on social media, showing the highlight reel, but who's talking about those failures? You know, Bart, this has been incredible. We do a thing here where we ask the previous guest to ask our next guest a question. So this comes from Sean Walchef, who you may know from David's World as well.
Yes.
But Sean asked me to ask you, so what does curiosity mean to you?
Curiosity. Oh, and Sean, what a great guy. I just published his podcast when he was my guest just today, right? Cali BBQ Media. Yeah. So funny. And then I know Ryan is involved and we were chatting a little bit about it, but curiosity to me means not satisfied, wanting to learn. Another statement that we share, it's easy to be, but it's better to become. We could just go our lives being disappointed. We could be in jobs that are just good enough. My friend Jesse Seif shared this example. Imagine if you are skiing, you're at the top of a mountain, you go down the skis, and you're going in the same path every single time. I mean, it's comfortable. After a while, it gets into a little bit of a rut, right? It gets into a rut. You go up to the top of the mountain again, and at a certain point, when you're in that rut, I'm not calling it a groove, when you're in that rut, something makes you move out of that one groove, out of that one rut, to experience something new. It might be a bear that's on the trail. It might be another skier that has fallen down. It might be a tree that blew up, whatever. But it's a positive distraction that is getting you out of that rut. Because after a while, it's easy, it's safe. I know to turn here. It's not that exciting. But then if you are pushed or nudged or encouraged, the pandemic pushed, nudged, and encouraged me. The heart attack pushed, nudged, and encouraged me to want to try going down a different path. Maybe I'm going to go down the different side of the mountain, because you don't need to be stuck in, I don't like my job, I'm sad, I'm depressed, people don't like me. I don't like my job, I'm sad, I'm depressed, people don't like me. Get this, use your podcast, Nik, use resiliency, use me, use any of our new friends to be able to push you, to nudge you, to go down a different path. And when you go down a different path, that leads to curiosity. You are then able to look at new things, take in new things, incorporate new things. That allows you to grow. Bananas, when they start, when they are green, they are growing. When they become yellow, they're already beginning to rot. And that was Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, that had said that. Yeah, I'm going to go back to easy to be, but better to become. Curiosity is the ability to want to get better. 3 frogs are sitting in a log. 3 frogs decide to jump. How many frogs are left on the log? The answer is 3, because deciding is different than doing, which relates to the whole thing of doing what most people don't do. Get off the log, go down the different path, use your friends, use your network, ask for help, get better, feel better, do better, get better. That is curiosity. And all of the solutions, Nik, what I'm learning very quickly from people like you, all of the solutions are out there. If I am worried about money and I haven't done things well, I'm going to talk to a tax attorney. I'm going to talk to my friend Nik. He's going to help me. If I don't feel well, I'm going to speak with Doug Grant, who can help me with my blood panel. If I don't feel well, I can talk to Dr. Grant Elliott, and he can talk about my back pain. If I don't feel well, I can talk to Seth Burge with Regenerative that can help me with stem cell thing. And yes, these things, of course, cost money, but just know that there are little resources out there for any of your ailments. So you don't need to live that way. You just need to be curious, and you need to be resilient.
Bart, a last question, and you've kind of already answered it, but we ask every guest, this is our last question. So tell me, after all this discussion, what does resiliency mean to you?
The ability to continue to do. the ability
when most people don't.
to continue. Yeah, when most people don't. Yeah, it's the ability. Because Nik, we all have the ability. We all have the ability. It's a choice. It's a choice.
Keep going. Yep. Yeah.
Keep going. If it's something that you believe in, it's going to make you feel better. You don't need to live poorly. You can live well. In poorly, I'm not saying from a money perspective. You don't need to live poorly in an unhappy way. You don't need to live poorly in a sickly way. Right? You can choose. You can choose to be able to live better.
I love that so much, Bart. What a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for joining me here today. For all of you out there, the Resiliency Project Pod is on social media now. I am active there. Check us out. If you want to be a guest, reach out there. We can certainly get you squared away. But until then, please keep going. And this has been the Resiliency Project Podcast. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.